for a panel discussion on overcoming critical urbanization challenges with geospatial solutions. This panel will be moderated by AGI's Director of Market Development, Ms. Megha Datta. Megha, may I now request you to please take over.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Rahul Kapoor, Manthan, and Mr. Pawan to join us for this panel. So essentially, let us just start from the very beginning. In each of your experience, what are the most critical urbanization challenges, that you have come across in your work? So if I could request Mr. Kapoor to highlight from the ministry point of view.
Thank you so much, Megha. So if you're looking at urbanization challenges, and I think when you ask people, most people would say the same things. Maybe transportation, traffic is a very important challenge. And if you're living in Delhi, air pollution, of course, would be a very, very important challenge. Even housing is a very, very important challenge. But when you go down to the ground level, as was presented in the previous presentation, you see that every city has its own set of complexities, its own set of challenges, and maybe it requires implementation of those common solutions that the industry has, but slightly adjusting it to the local context. So, looking at that today, if I would say that India, with its pressures of population and with its demand to become, let us say, a $5 trillion economy, or with the kind of pressures with the migration that is taking place from rural to urban areas, or the way you have all those urban congestion related issues. So what is it that is being done to address those challenges? So whether it is in terms of capacity of the authority, the industry, because when you're, even if you, let us say, have the resources, and many of the tier 2 and tier 3 cities do have that problem. So you may have money coming in from the government programs, but then you don't have the resources available, the human resources or the technology available to actually address those critical issues. These are the kind of challenges you have. You have challenges of capacity. You have challenges because you want to do more from less. You have a country with 1.4 trillion, 1.4 billion population, and yes, today, though the urban sector does contribute close to 65% to the GDP and everything is there, but you still have a developing or emerging country. So you have limited resources to meet these demands that these 1.4 billion people generate. So how do you meet that, doing more from less? So innovation is definitely a very, very important part here. So when we say that, how do you foster innovation? How do you try and find solutions that are more context specific to the specific challenges that are there in India? So that's the second thing. And yes, so the emerging world of technology and data. So a lot of technology interventions taking place within the government, outside the government, creating a very big data ecosystem. So what is the kind of capacity available today to inculcate or imbibe this culture of data in cities? So that's probably the third thing that we would say is a challenge, but more a challenge towards creation of enablers that addresses the overall larger urban challenges that cities face today. So I think that would be the three things I would say.
Thank you. Manthan, from your side, you represent PwC, one of the big fours,
yes,
and you work a lot with the urban sector. What are the key challenges that you come across in your work, as far as geospatial is concerned?
So, Megha, the thing is, we have been working with ULBs and corporations, smart cities from quite a few years now. What we have primarily seen is, and I concur with thoughts of Kapoor sir and Ghaziabad Commissioner, what they have mentioned, the ground realities are pretty difficult. The urbanization is so rapid that the technology is not able to keep up with it. The challenge that we have right now seen is chaos of technology, which is currently being seen in front of the city authorities. मैं क्या choose करूँ is the question. And when GIS is there, the biggest complexity that they are finding is data and institutionalization of the data. most of the GIs that we have seen fail because they take up the step of creating a lot of geospatial data sets. They take projects on war footing, create a lot of ground layers, buy certain platforms, develop few applications for the time being. But what they miss out on is the institutionalization of the data and application. And what happens is, because on ground the situations are changing so dynamically, uh, it takes only a couple of months to sort of figure out a gap between the field reality and the map. And that is why what we have sort of considered as an approach when we go to a client or a city authority for consulting, what we do is we tell them first about creating a institutional mechanism for geospatial data, create an operating model for your geospatial department. If you don't have one, create one. If you can't, uh, just have a small cell, don't call it as a department, build capacity within that, have external internal resources within that. Every city has people from planning department, town planning, city planning. One or two guys you will always find who are enthusiastic about the technology. You pick those guys, make them champions, because they are the representative of the organization, and get other people's outsourced. And then create a data updation mechanism on regular basis. It can be as simple as creating data from the field on piece of paper. Take printouts of the maps that you have created so far. Go on field, update the changes on the map physically, bring it back, update the layers, and then only proceed further. We actually, I personally call it as hardwiring, and it works. I have seen in a couple of cases where organizations are using hardwiring till date from last 6-7 years. I'll give you an example. A tier 1 corporation manages their entire sewerage network completely on GIS till the time they are doing budgeting every year using the number of manholes that are there on the map, the entire sewer network on the map. Entire planning happens through that. And they update the data even to the tune of changing the cover material from a concrete cover to a metal cover. They update the data in GIS and then only they proceed further. And how they have done the hardwiring is they do not release material from the store unless it is updated in GIS. So that sort of hardwiring is required. A lot of ground administration has to work on this because technology will solve. It is there. But then processes and policies needs to be there to sort of manage that data. So data management is one of the biggest challenge that we have seen. Because of that, most of the GISs are failing. The another part is, of course, following the standards. Because at national level, state level, there are a lot of policies that are being built, a lot of standards that are being given, but then when actual implementations happen, the standards are kept aside. And then you don't follow the right metadata standards because at that point in time, you don't understand the importance of that, and then probably later on you figure out that it's not matching with the. So for example, Gati Shakti program that has been started by Government of India, and a lot of BISAC is asking data from states and cities, but what format, what metadata? Cities are confused to give that data, and then they are looking out for people, consultants, GIS industry people to help them out to give that data to BISAC and the central authorities. If they would have implemented data from day one using those metadata standards, probably this would have helped. So standards and policies is something that which I see is the biggest problem that another area that can be looked into. Technology, yes, Mr. Kaushik also rightly mentioned the dynamicity of the technology is also a biggest problem that we have seen because everything is changing every 6 months. Today we have ETS, tomorrow we have drone-based survey, then we have LiDAR-based survey, then we have AI ML coming in, we have crowdsourcing, a lot of other things are happening. And that's why authorities get confused what to use, what not to use. The simple answer to this is what Mr. Kapoor said, every city has a DNA. Address a problem with, give a solution according to the problem.
Right.
So stick to one, solve it till the end, and then probably move to the next. I think that's my view.
Thank you. Yeah, Pawan, please, from your think tank perspective, so NIUA acts like a think tank for MoHUA. What are the challenges that you...
So, from the last 8 to 10 years, we have started using the GIS technologies in various projects. For example, SmartNet in Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, we have used GIS technology in the smart city missions, but it is not more basically it's a simple kind of technology we have used the skills, but in the master plan for Delhi 2041 we have used it extensively. So during the preparation of this master plan we have faced lots of challenges, like earlier three master plans was not on GIS, so we have used the GIS technology in the 2041 master plan only. So yeah, basically, for example, in Delhi case, there are hundred of issues, but how we have to use the GIS to solve these issues is very important. So every agency has different kind of layers with them, but integration of these layers are not available. So when we are preparing the baselining study, we find out that the uh, urban sprawl of the city was expanding in for example, during the spatial temporal analysis, we have found out that from 1999 to 2006, the built-up of the Delhi was increased from 35% to the 45%. So 10% built-up was increased within a 10 years. So इस तरह के challenges, so basically हमें समझना पड़ेगा कि overall this kind of challenges we have to face. So दिल्ली के केस में एक और इशू ये था कि how we can protect our vacant land. So integration of the land management information system with the ownership detail is very important. So दिल्ली के केस में क्या है कि there are multiple agencies, जैसे सर ने बताया कि आपको अपना लैंड कैसे प्रोटेक्ट करना है. तो for that we have to first geotag our land. First we have to mark all the parcel. We have to integrate the ownership details कि ये land किसका है, because we cannot because uh, with the help of geospatial technologies we can check कि कौन से land पे किस time पे किस period में encroachment start हुआ है. Earlier there was technology का lag था. अभी जैसे सर ने बताया कि आज ये टेक्नोलॉजी हो सकता है कि 10 साल के बाद टेक्नोलॉजी चेंज हो जाए, कुछ और बेटर वर्जन आ जाए. पहले इससे भी इस आज ये वर्जन है, इससे पहले लेस वर्जन पे हम काम कर रहे थे. बट ये ज़रूरी है कि जैसे दिल्ली के केस में हमने एक चीज़ और ये फाइंड आउट करी कि जैसे ग्रीन एरियाज थे. सो ग्रीन एरियाज जितने भी थे अर्बन स्प्रॉल के दौरान देवर एनक्रोच्ड. सम ऑफ द जैसे ग्रीन एरिया कुछ एरियाज में जैसे वाटर बॉडीज हमारी थी, वाटर बॉडीज दिल्ली के अंदर अभी मोर देन 700 है, पहले उससे भी ज़्यादा थी. वो इंक्रोच होगी. क्यों इंक्रोच हुई? बिकॉज मोनिटरिंग नहीं था. मोनिटरिंग क्यों नहीं था? वी डोंट हैव उस टाइम पे टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं था. सो इंटीग्रेशन विद द लैंड मैनेजमेंट इंफॉर्मेशन सिस्टम इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. सो वन ऑफ द एक और चैलेंज जो था वो ये था कि during the preparation of the land record revenue base. So during the preparation of the land pooling, we prepared a seamless sector delineation plan for the entire 5 zones for the land pooling zones. So उसके अंदर ये था कि जितने भी zones हैं land pooling के, अगर अगर हमने उसको अभी अर्बन स्प्रॉल को रोकने के लिए अगर हम फ्यूचर प्लानिंग नहीं करेंगे, फॉर एग्जांपल लैंड पुलिंग नहीं लाएंगे, तो क्या होगा कि वो एरियाज भी एनक्रोच हो जाएंगे. सो आपका जो नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज है वो भी इंक्रोच होगा, आपका वैकेंट लैंड भी इंक्रोच होगा. तो उसके लिए आपको एक बेटर प्लानिंग फ्यूचर ऑप्शंस देना पड़ेगा. एंड उसके लिए बेसिकली वी हैव टू प्रोवाइड द सॉल्यूशन थ्रू द पॉलिसीज. फॉर दैट, फॉर द एंटायर दिल्ली वी हैव डिवाइडेड द settlement pattern into the two sides, planned and unplanned. So on the during the preparation of baselinings, we find out that the more than 40% of the area is under the unplanned settlement, and so it is a big number in case of Delhi. So there are more than 1700 unauthorized colonies, and we have to provide the redevelopment policy for that. So otherwise if we don't have any policy, then the urban sprawl will keep expanding, and the vacant land will be encroached. So we have to provide some legal solutions for that, so that we have provide redevelopment policy. We have for the vacant land for the outskirts of the Delhi, we have provide the land pooling policy. Or for the green belt area, we have proposed the GDA policy, which is a green development area policy. Or for all these policy, we are planning to integrate with the GIS solution.
Great. Anyone from the audience, from the industry side, would like to respond to anything that one of our panelists has said? Please, yeah, Shahrukh from Oracle.
So Hello. Yeah. So a lot of thing has been discussed, and I believe that a couple of points has been discussed since it's an open forum, and this was one of the points that I also raised in SDI as well. That I believe sir was mentioning about GPS surveys. Now we know that Saumitra, implementation has been initiated across India. If you see, I have been working in industry from past almost 10 years, and I have visited almost majorly all the government departments. And what I've realized is that all the government departments across India have a lot of data. The problem is that governments are not sharing data with each other. Another problem which I have realized, that for example today is Saumitra Yojana which has launched, tomorrow is some another Yojana which will be launched. The usage of the data that has been created under that Yojana is not being used in the new Yojana, and the skill set that has been developed in that Yojana is not being again utilized in other Yojanas. So, all in all, overall, if you talk about, let's say, GPR surveys, we all need to do, ground level utility mapping. Survey of India has already done it, but no other department have it. We are talking about Swamitra Yojana. Whole India, a drone service will be done, but at the end of the day, it will be only used for properties. But we can do a lot about it, right? And it can solve many problems. In fact, when we talk about traffic management, we talk about even other types of management, even encroachments, or even if we say that how much amount of encroachment has happened, maybe identifying the planned and unplanned, how the even we are talking about AI ML, and we are talking about urban sprawls. Now those predictive models are already there, but again it all boils down to the data. And I still remember when I was doing my masters in GIS, our professor used to say GIS starts from data. If you don't have data, you can't do anything. And at the end of the day, it's all about that the governments and internal departments are not sharing data. We have humongous amount of data, but it is not basically interexchangeable or change. So there should be, I think so, if there is someone from the government or who's listening out, we should come up with a discussion wherein there should be a common platform that all government or department should share at one central level, so that everyone is able to utilize it and make it better for our country. Thank you.
Any thoughts? Like we've heard a lot of the challenges or the what is lacking in the ecosystem. It could be data or skill or capacity or the willingness to share data. What are your thoughts on how to bridge this gap? From the stakeholder perspective. So I believe that any issue, any problem that we have is not the onus of one person. It's a systemic issue. So from the systemic point of view, what would you say is the role of the industry, is the role of the government, think tanks, academia? How do we come about in the next couple of years? What kind of steps we can take to overcome these challenges?
See, from a government's perspective, this question is something that is a reality. There are silos existing today, and I say this quite often. We say that data is the new oil because it feeds into AI, but I use the other analogy that is actually gold. It has a lot of value, but gold does not flow, oil does, and data does not flow between departments. So you can probably say that in most of the cases, it is like gold. Now, addressing these challenges, of course, the government is cognizant of that fact. And as a smart cities mission, that was the first thing we thought of, that do we try and solve each and every problem there in the field? Or do we create an enabling platform that allows all these stakeholders that you mentioned, Vega, we call it the quadruple helix philosophy, wherein all stakeholders from the government, academy, industry, and the civil society come together and work together to solve these challenges or problems. So data is definitely that enabler that feeds into a lot of these solutions that will end up helping us meet our end goals. We came out with a data strategy in 2019 as a smart cities mission. We said, okay, with 100 smart cities, which were supposed to be lighthouses, let's try and institutionalize a culture of data. So we talk about 3 Ps. We say, let's get the right kind of people who understand data, starting with appointment of 100 city data officers. Obviously, they did not know what is the role that they're supposed to play as a city data officer. So there is a need to have more alliances, more partnerships with the industry, with the civil society, with the academic institutions who build that capacity in cities to understand the world of data and technology. So accordingly, those processes were built in place with city data policies coming in. And accordingly, the platforms, we say, okay, let's try and create common digital public goods or common platforms that will institutionalize this culture. So when you say data being there, this whole idea of open data, about sharing data, starts with that. So we started with the Smart Cities Open Data Instance. So 100 smart cities started uploading data sets being made available to the public. So that's like 5,000 data sets today being there on the Smart Cities instance, open for public. But then, are they really high value data sets? That's the second question that comes, because obviously you would like to seek some value out of the data that you get. So there has to be a strategy of how do you allow exchange of data to take place in an access controlled manner. So when you're talking about data within the industry, so I'll give you an example of Surat. There were two vendors who were running the bus transit system there. One of them was looking after the fare control, and one was them was looking after the bus routing. And obviously, these two systems were not talking to each other, being locked in proprietary systems. We created a program for data exchange that was the next evolution from open data, and this IUDX program allowed this exchange of data to take place. And what it did was create a use case wherein you could predict what is the occupancy of that bus, because now you have these two systems talking to each other through a pipeline which allowed a secured access control data exchange to take place. That use case solves the problem of commuting. Similar use case in Vadodara, wherein they geospatial data in an ambulance. There's a health management system which is tracking all ambulances in cities. There's an ITMS which Ghaziabad is doing. These traffic signals which are controlled by the ITMS get linked to this through an IDX platform, and it allows you to create a green corridor for your ambulances to go the moment they are in the geolocation of that particular traffic signal. That's a live use case that was created. Moving on, how do you monetize this data? That's the third evolutionary step when you're talking about the evolution of data. Now, all these things are going to happen gradually, because it is not that we don't realize or we don't understand the value, but we are not at that level of maturity. And especially when you look at the size of the country, when we say we need to do more from less, look at it, 4,800 urban local bodies. How many of us sitting here in Delhi would be willing to go to, let us say, Namchi in Sikkim, to work with them to create a GIS solution over there? And that would require being there on ground. So that capacity will have to be created bottom up. It cannot be done from top down. So we as a government need to be there, creating that enabling platform, allowing that civil society within that particular city to come and work together, creating avenues for them to work by engaging with the youth through programs like the urban leadership program that we have got, through the fellowship program that the mission is trying to run. There are initiatives, there are steps, but I think that strategic roadmap is available. Idea is just to scale it up to more than the 100 smart cities, and that's what this mission has to become a movement, and that's our overall goal.
Yeah, I think I echo with whatever Mr. Kapoor said. My view on silos is it's not a reality at department as in across the country, but it is a reality within each organization as well. Today morning I got a call from my client and he said, Manthan यार मुझे GIS cell बनाना है, तो मेरे को help कर दो आप. I said, sir, your GIS is outdated. So they had sort of prepared a geospatial data set back in 2015-16, and then that whole enthusiasm died out within the organization. Nobody uses it. I said, sir, आप GISL बना के करोगे क्या आप? What do you want to do? No, we have a GIS. We will update the data. मैं sir, you have command control center, you have ITMS, you have vehicle tracking and monitoring system for solid waste management. What all maps you are using? सब में अलग अलग है, सबके पास अपना एक मैप है, हमें अब सबको एक करना है. Please tell us the strategy. Now this is a problem for me to solve, but this is the state that is there we are in right now. So silos are at department level itself. So we have to start from there, and who can solve it is all of us together. Back in the days, I remember Delhi Geospatial had taken that initiative at Delhi as a state level. You have to sort of bring in all the data from all private, public utilities, organizations through some common platform, which didn't fly that much because of the technology challenges. That time they had identified periodic data exchanges and everything, but today we have technology. A platform like NSDI can be done at city level, and honestly, we are proposing this to a lot of cities to have city SDI. And let's bring in all the private public utilities, all the city authorities, all the academia within the city, come together, create an MOU, and define a platform for exchange of data, use that data for public services and their internal sort of planning and other parts. But this is how we'll have to start from the organization level, and then probably we'll move to state or
And
national.
also to identify the sources of resources.
Yeah.
Something like this would require a lot of resource and to keep it updated.
Absolutely. That I agree.
Absolutely.
I am agree with Mr. Kapoor sir and Mr. Manthan. So basically ये समझना पड़ेगा दिल्ली के केस में. आई विल गिव यू वन एग्जांपल. जैसे मंथन ने बताया अभी कि GSDL is an organization who is providing the geospatial solutions for Delhi, but उनका जो मॉडल है ना उसके अंदर डाटा शेयरिंग इज वन ऑफ द मेजर चैलेंजेस. सो when we were working under the MPD project, so we also faced these problems because we are in the land use plan we have some control layers which is related to the land use only, but for the base data GSD is the only service providing agency. But as GSDL is like their model is like they have to provide the data on the basis of the there's some revenue model, so data sharing is again a gap. So every city ये समझना पड़ेगा कि every city का जितना भी एरिया है उसका GIS का जो बेसिकली ओनरशिप है वो किसके पास है. इफ देयर इज मल्टीपल एजेंसी देन इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ द डाटा इज इम्पोर्टेंट. अदरवाइज क्या होगा कि एक एजेंसी के पास एक डाटा है, दूसरी एजेंसी के पास एक डाटा है, बट इंटीग्रेशन नहीं है. सो यही दिल्ली के केस में भी हमने फेस किया. वी हैव लैंड यूज लेयर्स पर बेस लेयर्स उसके साथ इंटीग्रेशन नहीं है. सो होता क्या है कि इफ यू आर प्लानिंग अ रिक्रिएशनल we are planning recreational, we are proposing some new areas, then base layers, without the base layers it will be very difficult to identify the ground realities. So this kind of challenge we always face during the planning of the cities. And for example during the identification of the unauthorized colony, we have seen that the maximum unauthorized colony has been encroached the proposed road areas. So now on the GIS we have identified that the आपका रोड ही नहीं है. अब आपको फ्यूचर में you have planned roads. In the last master plan we have proposed few roads, but over the period of time आपका road encroach हो गया. Now अब क्या करना है? We have to provide some alternate solutions with the help of GIS. So we are planning like on the we are planning कि उसको या तो same location से ही आप उस road को लेके जाएंगे with या तो redevelopment करेंगे उस एरिया का, या will provide some alternate solution with the bypass of that area. So इस तरह के issues अगर इंटीग्रेशन नहीं होगा डाटा का, फॉर एग्जांपल MCD है, दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट है और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट है, इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ डाटा इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अदरवाइज क्या है, डाटा सबके पास है बट अगर वो इंटीग्रेट नहीं हो रहा तो वो यूज़ का नहीं होगा.
पहले तो मिस्टर मंथन की बात का, मैं जगदीश पारोनी, डायरेक्टर एडमिन फाइनेंस NCR प्लानिंग बोर्ड. मैं मिस्टर मंथन की बात को सपोर्ट करता हूँ कि साइलोज जो बने हैं, इनफैक्ट शाहरुख जी को बताऊंगा कि ये कोई एक अलग GIS नहीं है. हर लाइन के डेटा में, मैं डिज़ाइन में रहा हूँ, स्ट्रक्चर डिज़ाइन में, तो मुझे मालूम है कि इंडिया में MES में से 10 जगह सेम बिल्डिंग बन रही है उस टाइप की, और अलग अलग बैठ के डिज़ाइनर. जो शाहरुख जी का इशू था बेसिकली कि इंडिया की GDP का कितना लॉस रिपीटेशन में हम खत्म कर रहे हैं. द इशू इज कि डबल ट्रिपल 8 टाइम लोग उसी डेटा में लगे हैं. लेकिन आई विल नॉट एग्री विथ योर व्यू ऑफ इंटीग्रेशन. फिर वो एक इंटीग्रेशन के लिए एक एजेंसी बैठाइए, वो नहीं हुआ. एक शेयरिंग के लिए ओपननेस जो चाहिए. अभी आपसे कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन से मैं लेट मी कम फ्रॉम एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन पॉइंट व्यू से, अभी इंजीनियर होके मैं RTI में कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन मांगता है हम दे देते हैं. तब CIC ने क्या बोला, CO मोटो आइए, जो चीज़ें रेगुलर लोग मांग रहे हैं, जो जानना चाहिए आपके बारे में आप बताइए. सिमिलरली डेटा शेयरिंग इस तरह होना चाहिए. इंटीग्रेशन में फिर एक एजेंसी बैठाएंगे, फिर एक पुलिस वाला डंडा आ जाएगा, इंस्पेक्टर आए. सो इंटीग्रेशन रादर द इंटीग्रेशन देयर शुड बी ए मैंडेट. ऐसा होना चाहिए कि गवर्नमेंट टू गवर्नमेंट, इवन गवर्नमेंट सेम डिपार्टमेंट में, जो आई हैव फेस दिस इन माय ऑफिस चेन्नई में होता था कि सम ऑटोकैड पे ड्राइंग बनती थी तो स्ट्रक्चर डिजाइन आर्किटेक्चर अलग बनेगी. So then some architect guy says, sorry, this is my property, I will not be. I said, you have used government money, you have done in office, so it is not your private property. Why other person will put duplicate effort? मैंने कहा कंट्री के जीडीपी इसी में नुकसान हो जाएगा, कितना फ्रिक्शन में खत्म कर देंगे रिपीटेशन करते. सो आई थिंक जो मिस्टर शाहरुख जी का यही आई थिंक होगा कि रिपीट डेटा है सब जगह, सब अलग अलग 10 जगह काम कर रहे हैं. तो और इंटीग्रेशन हम एक को दे देंगे, वो तो एक इतना बड़ा एजेंसी हो जाएगी कि आई डोंट नो वो इंटर स्टेट की चीज़ों में हम एनसीआर भी तरफ. सो ओपननेस का कुछ मैंडेट गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से हमें करना पड़ेगा कि डेटा जो सेंसिटिव डेटा है 5-10% है, उसकी वजह से 95% सेंसिटिव कर लेते हैं, हम लोग शेयर नहीं करते. आई नो, आई एम कमिंग फ्रॉम डिफेंस डिपार्टमेंट, मैंने काम किया हर चीज में हम, अरे मैंने कहा गूगल में सब पढ़ा है, व्हाई यू आर नॉट शेयरिंग इट. सो दिस इज द इशू इज देयर कि रेजिस्टेंस है हमारे अंदर, कोई पूछ ना ले, ये ना करे, डेटा शेयर नहीं करते हैं. सो दैट हम लोगों को ज़्यादा जो पुरानी दादी टाइप का जो पोजिशन है वो छोड़ना पड़ेगा इन चीज़ों से. डेटा को फ्लो करना है तो तभी होगा जब इंटीग्रेशन बजाय ओपननेस. यू डेटा इज अवेलेबल, यू यूज अवर डेटा, इफ यू फाइंड इट गुड ओके. अगर आपको लगता है मेरी डिजाइन खराब है मत यूज करिए, अपना नया बनाइए उससे देख के बेस लेके. थैंक यू.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your intervention. So, due to paucity of time, we have to, pause the panel here. Although it's nice to see our audience also getting engaged with it. Mr. Rahul Kapoor has some very important, urgent meeting to get back to, and also Mr. Tawar has also to leave for another meeting. We are very thankful for both Mr. Tawar and Mr. Kapoor to have spared time and joined us. A small token of our appreciation to the panelists.